So, this week we are reading chapter 9 of our textbook Microeconomics in Context. The chapter is called Markets for Labor, and this is part 1 of the lecture. So, the learning objectives for this week and for this chapter is to understand the decisions that individual make about entering the market for paid labor. And first we were looking at the neoclassical model, which uses the concepts of labor demand and labor supply and its interaction in an aggregate labor market to model a system of labor markets and individual decision making. And this model also explains variation in wages among workers as well as how these are determined in the market. So, first we will look at this neoclassical model and the explanation for wage determination, but we will also go on to look at other factors that explain the wages in the labor market not explained by neoclassical models, such as compensating wage differentials, bargaining and union efficiency wages and dual markets. And we will also talk about the discrimination in the labor market based on race and gender, and also discuss recent changes in jobs and the labor market, particularly the notions of employment flexibility, work life balance, impact of immigration, and such. So, all of us are aware about the labor market because it is a very familiar phase. But labor market is not a market for laborers. There is a very crucial difference between the labor markets and the market for labor, because market for labor essentially means markets for human beings, and that is one of the worst practices in human history, slavery, so which is illegal everywhere. So we have to be very careful when we are talking about labor markets. What is being sold in the labor market, it's not human beings themselves, but what is sometimes known as labor power. This labor power is what a given person is able and willing to do in a given amount of time. So, an employer who hires a certain amount of labor power, for example, X number of people working for Y hours for a firm, the firm expects that this amount of people working for this amount of time will produce a certain level of output. But it is not the actual output that is being purchased in this market. It is the contribution that each employee makes towards the production of that output is what is being purchased in this market. And we have two sides to this market. One is the individual side who is the carrier of this labor power and who is willing to supply this labor power to this market, and the other side is the demander of this labor power, which is mostly a firm or business or an employer who wants to hire this labor power and pay the wages for hiring this labor power. And this all is captured in the neoclassical model of labor, which we are going to talk about next. And this is essentially an interaction of supply, which is provided by individuals, and a demand which comes from the firms. And in this model, both supply and demand come together, and as you will see, this supply and demand is similar to what we read in chapter 3 about supply and demand in the market, of quantity supplied and demands and prices and their variations and their interaction. It's similar. So first we will be talking about the individual's decision to supply labor and see how that pans out. So labor power is fundamentally owned by the individual, who may be thought of as renting out their services when working for pay. So in a neoclassical labor model, there are three different activities that an individual can spend their time on, And these three activities are paid work, unpaid work, and leisure. And out of these three activities, only the hours spent on paid work results in wages. So, which in turn give the individual opportunity for consumption. So, there is a choice to be made about the amount of time that individual would want to spend on paid work, and they would want to have time for unpaid work and leisure. So, this idea can be applied more broadly to understand the cost and benefit of supplying the labor to these three different activities. And cost and benefits of supplying labor may be seen in terms of money, but also reflect any other gains or losses that are valued by that individual. So, most of the alternative facing an able bodied adult who is considering going out to work for a wage or salary falls under four different headings, is whether they would like to spend their time on paid employment or whether they want to be part of household production, education, self employment, or leisure. So, the extent that you value any of these four pursuits reduces the hour you devote to them when you take a paid job. So, so the job is like a cost. The cost is the lost opportunities for these other activities that you would be rather engaged in. And you also need to think about the cost that you might incur if you take a paid job, if you have to replace your labor within the household to take up that job, because it might, you may incur increased monetary expenditure for things that otherwise might have been home produced using your own time, such as childcare and meal preparation. So, if you take up a paid job which doesn't allow you to do all these things, then you will have to spend some money to provide these things. So, taking up a paid employment has an opportunity cost, not only in terms of losing the hours or rather spending that hours in something else, but also in terms of increased monetary expenditures if you don't have time to do the things yourself. So essentially, an individual faces this decision of supplying labor to the market in which they have to think about all these different opportunity cost of doing that paid work. So apart from the opportunity cost of doing paid work, there is definitely benefit of such paid employment, and labor supply is defined using the trade off between these cost and benefit, right? And the individual decides how much labor they would provide for paid employment based on their assessment of this trade off between the opportunity cost and benefit of paid employment. And the obvious benefit of paid employment is that it provides an income, right? Work is also important for intrinsic reasons such as personal growth and opportunity it offers in form of social bonds, and depending on the output to contribute to the society. So these are other benefits apart from monetary benefit that is can be had from paid labor. And in the recent years, what we have seen is that the perceived benefit of paid labor has increased as societies have become more consumer oriented and more accepting of women working, and perceived costs have decreased because of technology and availability of market substitutes. The number of hours required for basic household production has declined. So, you don't have to really think about the trade off between your paid labor and unpaid labor really that much.